So moving swiftly on, I'd like to welcome my co-host for this session, Alison Leong from Atlassian.
Hi, everyone.
Alison has joined us all the way from sunny Amsterdam.
Hi, Landy. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Excellent. So, Alison, what do you do with Atlassian?
I work with Atlassian partners in Northern Europe, like Eficode, to help our customers get the most of their Atlassian solutions. We at Atlassian are focused on teamwork and unleashing the potential of all teams. So, Landy, I'd like to ask you, how have you seen the nature of open collaboration evolve in the past couple years?
I think certainly in the last 2 years, given the situation we've had and the need to have to work remotely and remote collaboratively, I think organizations that already had a high level of trust between colleagues certainly were able to thrive, whereas organizations with low trust struggled a little bit. But that in itself, I guess, the struggle becoming more transparent means, on the positive note, we are now able to actually address the issue, which is a lack of trust, and provide environment for people to be able to collaborate openly.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Atlassian and Forrester actually came out with a report last fall that focuses on this very topic. It's titled, Unlocking the Value of Open Collaboration to Drive Enterprise Agility.
Oh. Did they give any indication in terms of how you can address the lack of trust and foster open collaboration in the article?
Yeah, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. It depends on your organization. But two leading causes of distrust are lack of supportive tooling and lack of prioritization. I highly recommend checking out the report to understand which key areas to invest in to ultimately unlock enterprise agility. And on that note, we'd like to introduce our next speaker, Dom Price from Atlassian. Like me, Dom is proud to work at Atlassian, the home of the most intelligent t-shirt wearers in business. Dom is our in-house team doctor, helping Atlassian scale, and he spends over half his time helping customers navigate transformation, agility, leadership, and the future of work. And with that, we'd like to welcome Dom from Australia.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining from. I'm joining, as they mentioned, from not so sunny Sydney. In fact, as an advance apology, we are experiencing some pretty horrible weather in Australia right now. I think I'd rather be in Europe. I was actually in the UK last week, and it was a damn sight nicer in the winter in the UK than it is here allegedly in the summer. We've got rain, we've got wind, and we've got thunder and lightning. Hopefully they all stay at bay for the next sort of 35, 40 minutes whilst we have a conversation. So wherever you are joining from in the world, thank you. I'm joining from what used to be my spare room, which is now conveniently my home office. And that's because 2 years ago, the world went a little bit strange. And I think we should congratulate ourselves for how we've navigated and handled that. I think we've all had a dose of resilience we maybe weren't expecting, but we're probably grateful for. There's a few things I want to talk to you about today. As the team just mentioned, I'm Atlassian's Work Futurist. As a caveat, that means I'm going to talk a tiny amount, maybe not at all, about DevOps and tooling. I assume you can all use the internet, and if you don't know about Atlassian tools, you can probably do a really good job of Googling it and finding out about that. And I'm not going to patronize you by talking about tooling, but what I do want to talk about is how we navigate change, something that I think we've all experienced in the last 2 years, and it's not going to go away. I think we need to get better at how we understand change, and also how we understand effective teams. I think the core of DevOps is around how we work effectively as a cross-functional team, and if we can get that right, I think everything else is pretty much easy. Maybe not easy, but certainly doable. As context, I'm Atlassian's Work Futurist. I've been with Atlassian for about 9 years. My job is to help us understand the future of work so we can build tools and ways of working today that you might not know you need yet tomorrow. And DevOps is a massive part of that for us. The whole software community is a huge part of how we think about unleashing the potential of teams. So a few things I want to talk about today. Firstly, completely nothing to do with tooling, but values. right? For me personally, I've learned a huge amount about values in the last few years. These are Atlassian's values. You'll see them very much demonstrated in today's presentation. Open company, no bullshit. I want to share a huge amount of stuff with you that is free of charge and any of you can use. The notion of don't bleep the customer. I know anyone who's passionate about DevOps is constantly thinking about how you delight your customer and how we do that in a team, right? The play as a team aspect. Our values create who we are. They create how we hire. And they also form part of our performance. And so if you're looking, there's a question before, and Marco was talking about a blameless culture. One of the ways we've scaled and managed a blameless culture is through our values. And the way we do that is we have a values interview, right? You could be technically an absolutely brilliant person, but if you don't understand things like build with heart and balance, play as a team, or be the change you seek, there's not a role for you at Atlassian. But also if you happen to sneak through, right, and you get into the organization, the way we recognize our employees, the way we amplify behavior, and the way we rate our employees is based on our values, not a cultural fit, not a constant, nothing that's fixed, but how we think about how we turn up human to human, which the question about blameless culture before, it's all about how we turn up human to human. When someone does make a mistake, do we chastise them or do we choose to learn from it? We always choose to learn from it unless that person makes constant mistakes, in which case maybe there's a different conversation to be had. Now, one theory, I'm very passionate about the future of work. I'm very passionate about effective teams. You can read a huge amount about what makes a great sort of functional team. I wanted to understand, what does dysfunction look like, right? What happens when we get this wrong? And I landed on this, the idea that dysfunction is the gap between what you know and what you apply. And I know from the audience that we've got on this session today, there's a huge amount of you that work with stakeholders, that work with people where you're like, you might be able to say the phrases of Agile, you might be able to use the language of DevOps, but you're not applying it, right? The application is what actually counts in this modern day world. In 2020, and the world we're working in today, it's not about what you know, it's about what you do. And I think that's the tipping point we're at right now. If you look at the number of organizations or publications talking about agile transformation, and it's agile, right? They've not understood the philosophy, the principles, or how to actually do it. They've just put posters on the wall. And I think the same thing is happening to some extent with DevOps. And I know the audience we've got here today don't want to do that, right? We want to apply it. So there's some things I want to share with you today that I think will help. The idea is when we first talked about this presentation, I had about 50 things I wanted to talk about. Now, the wonderful team at Eficode were like, you've not got time for 50 things, Dom. You've got time for a few. So I've narrowed it down to 3 things that I think can help you understand change and build effective teams. Something I'm confident every single one of you wants to do. Now, the first, and I think almost the most important thing here, is context. How do we understand the world we are in? Essentially, it looks at people, practices, products and tech, and place. And the way we think about this, and by the way, these slides are going to go a bit funky because we've had to adjust them, is people is about who you have in your organization, how they think, how they act, how they work, how they turn up. I'm just going to go back, just give me a second. People is about how you think about learning and development. It's how you think about growth mindset, how you think about the skills, right? If you're in the world of Agile or DevOps, you can train people on how to be more skilled, right? You can train them on how to be Agile. But the important next phase, as you'll see in here, is practice, how you work human to human. I've got products and tech third. They're the third most important thing we impact. Often with DevOps, we start with tech, but actually you need the right people with the right mindset and the right ways of working to complement. And then your physical environment. And the secret here is, how do we make those things congruent? How do we make them consistent? They are the things that you get to influence, not control, but influence. The next thing that's important is your stakeholders. Who do you talk to and how do you impact them? We're really selfish at Atlassian. I don't mind admitting that. We start with ourselves first. Then we think about our customers. We have to differentiate our customers from our users, as I'm sure many of you do. They have different wants and different needs. The influencers, and then our broader ecosystem. Who else are we impacting? How do we communicate with these people to keep them engaged? And how do we understand their different wants and needs? Again, important context of who you're serving and how you're serving them and how you communicate. And then the final thing is, over what time period? Are we solving for now, in which case we're fixing something? It tends to be the triage. Or are we solving for the future? Now, when you add all these things together, you get a wonderful chart that's going to arrive. And the way we use this rubric is we actually pause and say, okay, first question, what are we trying to influence? Is it people? Do we need to send everyone on a training course, right? Do we need to change, the way people think about how they work? Is it our practices? Is there a framework or a methodology we're looking at? Are we trying to build our own ways of working? The question often arises with practices, how are we removing our old rituals? How are we understanding our legacy habits? There's not just legacy technology in the world. There's a whole lot of legacy habits. Organizations, I work with a lot of banks, telcos, insurance companies. They are often 150 years old plus. And when they're trying to roll out DevOps, their struggle isn't tooling, right? They've got lots of money in the bank. They can buy the best tools, and they've actually got quite smart people. But they've got ways of working that are probably 150 years old. That's the thing we need to unleash and unlock. So the first thing we understand is, what can we influence around people, practices, your habits, your rituals, your ways of working. Products and tech is important. I often say a fool with a tool is still a fool. You've just made them faster. And I know plenty of you on this call have seen really fast idiots, right? You've rolled out technology and you've sat there and gone, no, that's not what you're meant to do. The tool's meant to send you that way, and you're all going that way. And so we know that a congruence in what you get to influence is very important. Again, once you've nailed that, when we're looking at all of our projects, when we're looking at any change, it's trying to work out, how does this impact Atlassians? How do we impact, whether it impacts our people or our ways of working or our tech? Then, how does it impact our customers? How we engage, how they buy, how we build that relationship? How does it impact the end user? And is that different? Right? And you know better than me, there are plenty of times when you're rolling out a change and you're like, this is great for the user. Might not be great for the customer. It might not be a great buyer experience, right? One of the examples we get all the time is reporting, personalization, right? You get the customer saying, I don't want my users to be able to personalize anything. And the users say, I'd like your tool. I'll give you a better CSAT or better NPS if you let me personalize the tool. Well, the customer says don't, and the user says do. How do you understand those trade-offs, those different wants and needs? And then once we've understood that, then it's that question of time frame, right? I have to admit, at Atlassian, we got a great set of stories and we got a great reputation about our culture and our ways of working. But sometimes things go wrong, and that's the now. That's the stuff that we have to fix and address. It's the reality of being in a technology business. But we don't want to spend all of our time firefighting. And I know you don't either, right? There is always time for triage and firefighting the now. But essentially, every time we land on something, we understand it, we're then like, how can we make this better in the future? Whether it be making our technology stack more scalable or sustainable, or understanding our people needs. And so for us, it's that mix of firefighting, how you fix and address the fires of now, but also fireproofing. How do you understand that if you're scaling your customers, your users, you're seeing different demand, how you almost future-proof? And we can't fully future-proof, but understanding that really helps. Interestingly, if you look at the pandemic as an example, when that first hit, we thought it was all about place, right? People were working from an office, and then we went to working from home. Actually, for us, the biggest change was practices. It was our IT department nailed the transition to work from home. It just, everything just worked. And so you're like, oh my God, how cool is this? And about 4 weeks into the pandemic, I was sat in this exact office thinking, why does work feel so hard all of a sudden? All I've done is change my commute. And the reason it felt hard was my ways of working were optimized for physically being in the office. And I didn't change them when I worked from home. I copy, cut, and pasted them. And so I had to change them, right? That was very much an Atlassian thing. But once we've evolved our ways of working to understand synchronous versus asynchronous work patterns, how you get better communication, building shared understanding and psychological safety, understanding our meeting cadence, right? Our version of offline. Once we've built all those, we're like, you know what? Let's share them with customers. Let's share them with users, because we're all going through this crazy experiment together. None of us planned to go through this. So let's accept that and find a way of navigating it together. And when the pandemic hit, it wasn't about planning for the future. It was like, make it work today. In fact, you should have made it work yesterday. Now we've got through that initial kind of hump of dealing with the pandemic. We're learning a lot more now about what we can do in the future, right? We're taking what we learned from the now, but applying it to the future. How can we build more sustainable resilience? And you can do the same. The advantage of this is I, in the past, for my sins, have worked for consulting companies. And I love them, right? I love the consulting world. I learned a lot in that environment. But most organizations I work with are spending 20, 30, $40 million a year on transformation, right? And let's just admit it. Transformation is a posh, very expensive word for change. And if we accept that we're all going through change every single day and that becomes a constant, I think if we get better at managing change, instead of signing up for these giant transformations that say, in 18 months, Markle is going to cut the ribbon on the Agile room, right? Or Margaret's going to cut the ribbon on the DevOps room and suddenly we're DevOps. You know you don't need an Agile room or a DevOps room. And so instead of this giant transformation, this leap of faith that turns an organization from monolithic and old school into modern, right, and sophisticated with brilliant dev cycle and release train, let's just sign up for evolution. Let's get a little bit better every single day, right? Let's manage change rather than signing up for giant transformation. And what we're seeing is organizations that do that are building way more muscle. Their learning velocity, their adaptability, their ability to match the changes in their markets is significantly higher, which I think is what we all want. Right? As a person, as a team, as an organization, we all want to stay relevant. So this is a way of understanding change and understanding where you're focusing and building that understanding with your teams. So imagine you've done that for all your projects, initiatives, OKRs, big rocks, whatever you want to call them. You're like, awesome, we've got context on what we're trying to impact. We understand the outcomes we're trying to achieve. We're aligned on our strategy. We have that context. Step one complete. That context, I think, is hugely important as a North Star of what you're trying to achieve. And the second thing around change and actually teams is you, right? You as an individual. I've gone through a phase in working for an organization that focuses so much on teamwork. I actually made the mistake that everything was about teams. And it's not, right? There is a very important role in the team, which is you and how you turn up. And I had this experience firsthand a few years ago, pre-pandemic. A wonderful lady by the name of Sophie, who's one of my mentors, right? She was helping me a few years ago. Sophie's based out of New York. And I was actually fortunate to be in New York visiting Trello, one of our offices over there. And I was chatting to Sophie about the fact that I was really struggling. I was at that stage in my career or in my work mode where I sat there and I was like, I'm busy, but I don't really feel effective. I was doing lots of stuff. I'd get to the end of the week and someone would say, how's your week? I'm like, yeah, busy. I'm in a guild, a forum, a steering committee, a group, a project, a program, an initiative. There's lots of things that I'm doing. And then they'd say, cool, were you effective? And I'm like, busy, right? And I was doing stuff, but I didn't know that I was moving the right things at the right time. And as a leader, it was quite frustrating, but I didn't know what to do about it. And I started to blame other people. But what I quickly realized was I was turning up to my team meetings to different forums, and I wasn't being the best version of me. I was being probably quite an annoying version of me. I was distracted. I wasn't present. I would arrive in the meeting. I'd be on my laptop. I'd be on my phone. My mind was still in the last meeting. My body was in this meeting. Therefore, I wasn't effective, and I was constantly playing catch up. And so I was trying to say, I'm like, help me understand, how can I be a great leader? If I think about this in the modern world right now, every single one of you in this conference is a role model. And whether you have leader in your title or not, I honestly don't care. Every one of you is a leader in some form. You might be leading a team. You might be just leading a person. You might be just leading yourself. You could be leading an initiative, right? Or a customer engagement or a goal. It doesn't matter what you're leading. You're all leading or driving something. And once we acknowledge that, it gives us a chance to say, how can I lead the best way? Now, you can go and download every book on leadership. I've read some of them. They're okay. They've not helped me at all. What actually happened is Sophie helped me. Now, Sophie helped me a couple of ways. First of all, she poured me a glass of Pinot Noir. Just for those interested in the setting and the environment, it's not essential to have Pinot Noir. I've done it with coffee or tea or juice or beer, doesn't matter. But I always pour myself a drink. I do this exercise every 90 days. I imagine everyone here today understands the idea of the retro. A retro is about doing something with the team. This is like a retro on steroids, but for me as a leader. So every 90 days, I ask myself these questions. It's called the 5 L's. It used to be called the 4 L's. I changed it to 5 because a friend called Shane, I did a 5th one last year, and I personally really like it. So I look back at the last 90 days, and I ask myself, as a leader, not looking at the organization or the team or anyone else, I put a mirror in front of myself. What have I done as a leader in the last 90 days that I have loved? Not like, life is too short for like. It's the thing that I've done, and I'm like, you know what? I nailed that. I was really good at that, and it added value, and it used my core skills, and I'm passionate about it, and I enjoyed it. That combination of something that's valuable to the organization that you love doing and you're good at. And the thing is, a lot of us hold that as a secret, or we're not sure what it is. But if you want to get the best out of yourself and your teams, you kind of need to know what your superpower is. And actually owning that superpower is valuable. It's not anything to be ashamed of, and nor is it standing on a soapbox and yelling about it. It's just sharing with your teammates, here's this thing that I think I'm quite good at, and I really enjoy doing it, and I think the organization values it. If you've got that combination, please do more of that stuff, right? It's absolute gravy. And so what is the thing that I've loved? And I look back at that because I should do more of it, and doing more of it is a good thing. It adds to my satisfaction, and it makes me more valuable to my team and the organization. The next two L's are linked. It's longed for and loathed, right? And they're linked because they form an equation. I'm of the belief that every single one of you is full. You're either full in hours because you're working too long and you've got no time to do anything, or you're full cognitively. You haven't got the brain power. Come Friday afternoon at 4 p.m., no one's looking to learn a new skill, right? Come the last week of the month or the last month of the quarter, no one sat there thinking, I might try a new thing, right? By the end of that time period, we're exhausted physically, mentally. And so that's not the time to sprinkle in a new way of working or to try something new. And so what we say to people is the longed for are the things on your backlog, your personal backlog, that you wish you were doing. There's plenty of things on there and you're not doing them, and it's okay you're not doing them because you're full. You have a really good excuse today. So before you can add in the things that you long for, you have to remove the things that you loathe. These are the things that you do and you're like, they're not adding any value anymore. The dividend isn't the same. It's an annoying habit or ritual that I do, but it's just become quite sticky, right? It's the reporting, it's the investigating, it's the chasing, right? It's for me, often it's when I join meetings and I'm like, why am I in these meetings? My team are in there. They don't need me, but I go in there because I either have a fear of missing out, right? Or as Mark mentioned before, I don't trust them, right? And I should trust them, but me being in there makes them feel like I don't trust them. So what this says is, if you want to add in the long for, you have to remove the loathe first. It takes a huge amount of discipline. But essentially, I'm hoping none of you in this conference today are heart surgeons. Because what I've realized is the loathed, the only person holding on to them is me. There's no one in my teams going, I really love that thing that Dom does. He should do more of it. They're sat there going, I can't wait for him to stop doing that. And so what happens is when I remove the loathed, no one dies. Nothing dramatic happens other than I get back time and space and freedom, right? I actually did an exercise when I did this a few quarters ago. I realized I had all these meetings that I was in that my team members were also in. And I'm like, one of the things that I loathe is that I have no time. So what's happened? I'm turning up to meetings where I don't know my role. I don't know what I'm responsible for. And I don't know what I'm accountable for. I don't know how I'm helping this meeting move forward. And so I did a trial. I actually deleted every single meeting in my calendar. It was the most therapeutic thing I think I've ever done in my life. It was better than any holiday I've ever had, removing every meeting. And I said to people, these are either a boomerang or a stick. A boomerang, very Australian, when you throw it, it comes back. If the meeting comes back, I want to know what my role is in the meeting, how you want me to turn up, and what you're going to hold me responsible for. And I would like to know what the purpose of the meeting is. If you come back with those things, I'll rejoin the meeting. The stick, when I delete those, if you can't come back with the role, the responsibility, the purpose of the meeting, those meetings don't come back. And I got 15 hours a week back in my life, right? If we can agree one thing today, it's that time is our most precious resource. And I got 15 hours a week back. Now, what actually happened was, as well as me saving time, my teammates around me suddenly leveled up. Because with me absent from the meeting, they were turning up, they were making decisions, they were driving progress. So it actually gave them a bit of space to be better, but it also gave me 15 hours to invest in the longed for. And my longed for was to do more coaching and mentoring. I had a huge list of Atlassians and people externally wanting me to help, and I had no time. So I got to do more of the thing that I longed for by first removing. And you know what? Some meetings got cancelled. When people messaged me afterwards, they're like, we just had that meeting because it was once a meeting. It was a recurring meeting that just sat in the calendar. And it took someone challenging it to go, Well, why are we having that meeting? Once it was removed, you know what? If you do want to add it back in. But if you don't, it's gone and you've got the time back. And this is a great way of driving your own evolution. Take something out, add something in. Take something out, add something in. You have no capacity to add in if you do not take out first. You are full, so please do not try it.
Hi, we are Eficode and we organize the DEVOPS Conference. DevOps is not a role, it's a way to increase an organization's ability to deliver applications and services faster with better quality. Some people say that DevOps is a management science. If Agile and DevOps are not yet part of your whole organization, we would love to have a chat and discuss how to make it real for you. You can find us at eficode.com. The links are in the description. And have a great time with the DevOps Conference talks.
The fourth L is learned, right? I'm a massive fan of any movement or any discussion around learning velocity. I think as a community, if there's one thing we could tap into that can make us superhuman in the next 5, 10, 15 years, it's driving our learning velocity. How do we learn quicker? How do we take an insight, learn something from it, and apply that learning? Take the insight, apply it, learn. If we can get that loop going and get that loop tight, I think we can drive an amazing progression in humanity and how we think about being human and turning up in work. And so for me, every 90 days, I look back at the previous 90 and I say, cool, what experiment did I run on myself? And what have I learned from that? One of the sort of meta level learnings for me, I don't learn well from success. When I'm on a project or a team and something goes really well, I'm like, yeah, it was someone else. It was always going to go well. It was easy. But when something goes wrong, I get out my fine tooth comb and I'm like, why? I do the 5 why analysis. I want to know why it went wrong. Not to blame anyone, but I've learned that I learn more from mistakes, from things that go wrong. And a lot of it's environmental, right? Or things that we could never have anticipated. It's not a bad thing, but by learning from that, I can share that learning with other people, right? If I think about families tend to, something goes wrong, you brush it under the carpet. But in business, I think we owe it to not brush things under the carpet, to go, hey, this thing didn't work. Here's what I learned from it. Here's what I'm going to do differently. Take that learning and make it our superpower. And the fifth L that my friend Shane added, and this was one where he talked about, he works a lot with sports teams, elite athletes, elite human performance. And he's like, you know what? There's a lot of industries and sectors have done it really tough in the last 2 years. And he's working with people on the edge of burnout, who are under huge amounts of pressure. And he's like, you know what? We've got to find the thing to laugh at, right? We don't know how long we're on this planet for. And you know what? Work can sometimes be a bit too serious. We're arguing about release trains or roles responsibilities or access to the right tooling. The admin's doing something that's driving us all insane. It's easy for the walls to come in. But laugh is to say, as a leader, what's the thing that I've done in the last 90 days that made me laugh? And that's a good thing, right? Adding some playfulness into work, I think is superbly helpful, right? I think it's very healthy. And in fact, for me, there's a lot of teams and people I work with that take work so seriously, I don't actually think they can be effective. I think they're permanently on the edge of stress or breakdown. And I don't think that's a great environment for communication or for open collaboration, right? We need more humility, and laughter can give us that. What I do with this exercise is, first of all, with my Pinot Noir or my beer or my tea or my coffee, I do this by myself on a piece of paper. The challenge for me, be as honest as possible. And it's hard, right? Because you're doing this on yourself. But once I've done it, I then share it with my peers. I share it with my peers to say, here's the thing that I loathe that I'm going to try and remove. Can you hold me accountable, Bob or Mary? Here's the thing that I long for. Do you know anyone who's good at that, who can help me? I'm trying to add in a new skill. Or Scott, here's the thing that I love doing. Have you got any more opportunity to practice that? It's about building peer-to-peer learning, not as a tool. Peer-to-peer learning isn't a system or tool. It's you being willing to be authentic and vulnerable with your peers and say, here's what I've learned and what I'm going to put out in the universe. What can you give back? Can you help me? Can you mentor me? Can you coach me? Can you hold me accountable? And then what can I do for you? It's a translation and a transaction of shared value. It's actually almost free of charge. You just got to give it time and authenticity. The last thing that I want to talk to you about, actually, just before we go off on that, is the world's changing, right? Whether you agree with the idea of the 5 Ls or not, I don't know, I'm relaxed. But let's agree on something. Across the world, certainly across developed nations, average working hours are increasing. That was even before the pandemic. During the pandemic, we have seen a notional increase in most Western countries, up to an hour a day increase in working hours. The companies that I'm working with, and statistically more than 80% of companies rate themselves as complex. I'm sure you're all in environments where you're like, I'm pulling my hair out on a daily basis. But as we're driving, as a community, we're driving artificial intelligence, things like automation. We're taking away low-skilled tasks and we're replacing them with more complex tasks. Longer hours, more complexity. That's a recipe for disaster if we're trying to do that the same way every day. So these 3 bullet points, if anything, should give us an imperative to drive our own evolution, because I don't want any of us to work longer hours, but I reckon we can all work smarter, maybe the same hours or less, and be more effective. And that for me is the utopian goal. How we get the same outcomes, without having to necessarily work longer hours, reduce the hours, be more effective. And so the last thing I want to talk to you about is team, right? Atlassian's mission is all about teamwork, right? We care about unleashing the potential in every team. We have a very strong belief around teams and how they drive effectiveness, how we build cross-functional teams, and how we work human to human. And it's kind of not straightforward. Part of the reason is there's a huge amount of narrative around high-achieving teams, and it's actually quite straightforward, right? Whether it be Patrick Lencioni, Stephen Covey, a whole lot of material around have a North Star, have a mission, celebrate milestones, have progress, have a plan. And you're going to sit there and go, that sounds really great. I've been in teams with all those things. I still didn't feel high achieving. Actually, it's probably more table stakes. If there's anything we've learned in the last 2 years, and maybe we started to learn it before, there's a flip to high achieving. There's another side to the coin that we don't always listen to. And it's the side around how we think about our emotional connection to work, which 10, 15 years ago would probably have got me fired or removed from a conference. But now we're a lot more comfortable talking about. So how do we understand emotional well-being? And what role does it play in work? Now, for us, we look at this under a number of facets. First of all, it's how we build psychological safety, how we build a sense of trust where I feel comfortable being my true, authentic self. Psychological safety means that I'm willing to sit in a meeting, virtual or physical, and say, Karen, I really like that idea. I can't help but think we might be able to do it differently. Have you thought about X or Y or Z? Right? The alternative, I'll sit there and go, that was a terrible idea, but I daren't say anything. Right? In that world, I'm not bringing my true authentic self. I don't have the safety to demonstrate what we call respectful dissent. Respectful dissent and friction is essential for creativity, for new ideas, for innovation. The other components that we care about are team cohesion, right? How we build this camaraderie, how we form teams and we quickly agree roles and responsibilities, our function and our working relationship, our social contract of how we're going to work together. And then the final aspect here is this sense of belonging, right? How do I understand the mission of the organization, the mission of the team, and how do I meaningfully contribute to that? We know from the science that teams or individuals that feel they are meaningfully impacting an outcome are significantly more motivated and engaged, right? Versus sat there going, yeah, I've got a backlog. Yeah, I've got a set of tasks, but like, who cares, right? And I think if anything, we've all felt, certainly I felt in the last 2 years, a little bit more transactional, right, in the nature of work. And I think some of that's okay, but we want to feel probably a more spirited connection. Now, as a company that wants to be famous for teamwork, we set out on a mission years ago. Now, I mentioned at the start, I joined Atlassian 9+ years ago. We were about 500-600 people at the time, a couple of locations. Everything just seemed to work. And that's because we were kind of small, right? Our nimbleness and our agility wasn't as much about how we worked. It was more a function of our size. But what we realized is as we grew, it was dangerous. We could grow and just get big. We could get slow and monolithic and cumbersome. And we didn't want that. We wanted to keep that nimbleness and agility of small autonomous teams and eventually that network of teams that we've got now. And that 600-person organization is now an 8,000-person organization across the globe, right? It's gone through epic scaling of more customers, right? More people, more products, more complexity, more technology. And so as we've navigated that, teamwork has been at the center of how we've scaled, how we've been sustainable, and how we've thought about evolving our ways of working. A couple of aspects to it, mainly around how we think about team health, and then how we think about team activities. Now, the first aspect, team health. Most of you will have seen the Spotify model. I love it as a piece of marketing and a piece of thought leadership. We built our own system around how we think about health monitors and what a healthy team looks like. Essentially an exercise that only requires thumbs, no technology. We've got 8 areas of team health. And as a team, we gather around, we go through the attributes of team health and we vote. As a team, are we good at this? Right, we're really healthy. Are we struggling? Are we really unhealthy? Or are we somewhere in the middle? We vote first, we talk second, right? We vote first so that the sort of overconfident alpha male doesn't dominate the conversation, right? And then we share our feedback. Most of our teams, sort of our product type teams, are doing this every 2 to 4 weeks. Sometimes they swap a retro for a team health monitor because instead of talking about the outcome of the work or the technology, this is about how we work, right? It's the manifestation of our habits and rituals. We've also got health monitors not only for product teams, but also for leadership teams. They tend to think on a longer time horizon, slightly more senior, more strategic, and also for service teams, right? In the world of ITSM, in the world of customer support, HR ops, a whole of ops roles, we find there's a whole of teams that instead of having a backlog, have a queue, right? They behave differently. They have a different rhythm and cadence. So they're the 3 team types we cater to. And so once you've rated yourself, as a team and you've got your idea of where you're struggling, it's not about then just going, this is terrible, right? We're in a mess. We've then documented exercises that help you improve. I'm preaching to the crowd when I say retrospective. In some recent research we did, 90% of organizations that are more innovative, the key difference is those 90% of organizations do regular retrospectives, and not just do them, they action them. If I could tell you the number of leaders or organizations I've consulted with where they do retrospectives, but they don't apply the lessons learned from it, it drives me insane. And so on our website, Atlassian Team Playbook, we've documented all these ways of working for free, right? Retro is one you will have seen before. DAISY is our decision-making matrix, how we communicate and build high-velocity decisions across teams at Atlassian in a very transparent, open fashion. Right? And the way we've built these is like recipe cards. Just like I buy Jamie Oliver's cookbook, when I make his lasagna, it doesn't taste like Jamie Oliver's, but it's still a damn good lasagna. If you follow these recipes, it's not about being best in class at them. It's about getting the team together, giving it a go, and driving your own improvement. So after decision-making, one that we added recently, probably middle to late last year, the work-life impact play. If you're working in a distributed team where you have some people in an office, some working from home, some with care responsibilities, some new people, right? Some people with tenure or experience, the work-life impact play says everyone is experiencing the pandemic differently. How do you build a sense of understanding in how you work better together? By first understanding the chaos behind the camera. This play has built huge amounts of empathy and understanding between our team leads and our team members. And then once we have that understanding, we can evolve our ways of working. With a team member I'm working with right now, she has care responsibilities, and one of my other teammates, he's in the US, he has care responsibilities. We've adjusted some of our meetings so they could do drop-offs and pickups, right? It's not rocket science. It's just, I wasn't going to do that without knowing. Once we understood each other's situation, we could adjust how we worked. And then one more that we've got in there right now is the project poster. It's how we build shared understanding. We build a project poster as a team at the start of a project. What's the problem we're solving? What's the impact of the problem? What's our proposed solution? And what are our assumptions? And every 2 weeks, when we do our demos and we do our retros back to each other, we look back and we update the project poster as a team. It's like a business case, but it's not bullshit. It's real. And we evolve it constantly. It's not a static document. No one signs it off. No one rubber stamps it. It's about evolving our understanding of the problem we're solving, challenging the assumptions, and learning together. And it gives us that shared accountability. Again, we've shared this with teams all around the world. It's there for you to use. It's free of charge. Literally hundreds of teams across Atlassian use this stuff every day. On the Team Playbook website, you'll see templates, you'll see examples, you'll see customer stories. It's there for you to use for free. So the most popular question I get asked whenever I talk on this topic is, how do we get there? And it's often who? Is there someone in HR who does this? It sounds a bit people-y. Is there a culture person? Do we need to hire like a chief transformation officer? Like, who does this? I'm hopeful that what you've realized is the answer is you. Whatever your role, whether you're an admin, a tooling expert, Mr. or Mrs. DevOps, you're the key to unleashing the potential of you first. And I'm going to encourage you and implore you, be selfish, right? Be the best version of you. And once you are, you can turn up to your team as a force multiplier. You can genuinely be the advocate and amplifier for that team. And once you do that, you will build a resilient, sustainable, scalable organization that is the envy of your competition, right? But you've got to start out with you. Be the best version of you, role model that in your team and amplify them, and then you can positively impact the organization. And if you do that, genuinely, I think the options for us are endless. So hopefully there's a stack load of questions you've been adding that we're going to go through now. Thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions, you can find me at that URL there, www.domprice.me, or you can find me on LinkedIn or any social media. If there's any questions you don't get a chance to ask now, ping me them on LinkedIn or any other format. I promise you I'll get back to you, because I know some people are comfortable asking in this format, others are not. So thank you so much for your time, your interest and your engagement, and can't wait to see what some of the questions are.
Excellent. Thank you for a really good talk, Dom. We do actually have some questions, and I'd like to kick off with one of the first ones. Because in the talk you mentioned in Atlassian, you also had to do this yourself. And the question is really, was it difficult to practice what you preach? And what were the key obstacles? So going from 500-600, nice, cozy, to what you are today.
Yeah, I love that. So the hardest thing for us to let go of was we'd have really successful years or quarters, and we'd sit there and go, wow, the balloons and the beers and the champagne. And then we're like, you know what? Most of what worked that quarter might not work next quarter, or what worked last year won't work this year. And having to let go of success, because we still want to celebrate it, but say the way we did it. So for example, the first year I started, the previous year, we had hired 35 engineers, right? There was fanfare and fireworks. It was the biggest hiring we'd ever done in a year. And I'm like, that's awesome. 35 in a year. Well done. Our goal for next year is 120. What we did to get 35 won't scale to 120, and 120 to, right, et cetera, et cetera. And so that reinvention is exhausting, because you want to celebrate what worked and then say, let's leave it in the past. Let's try something different. And then the second thing that I think we've really struggled with is trying to get this idea of permission. You know, as we scaled, it's like, yeah, how do we roll this out across the organization? You don't. Start in a small team. If it works, tell your friends. If it works again, tell someone else. And it builds its own momentum. And I think as we've got larger, we started to sort of let the habit creep in of going, whose permission do we need to do this? And often it's no one. The permission you need is yourself. And let's give it a red hot go and try. And once we do that, we very quickly learn what works and what doesn't.
Excellent.
Okay, our next question comes from Thomas. Would you recommend doing the 5 L's exercise regardless of role in the company? And is it an exercise you have shared with your peers?
Yes, Thomas. Personally, I would recommend it to anyone at any stage of their career. My only regret is I learned at age 41. I wish I'd learned it in my early 20s when I was probably a little bit more egotistical and obnoxious. I think for me, it's just an amazing exercise in pausing, because it's quite a selfish exercise when I reflect on me. But the thing is, if I do it well, it becomes a selfless exercise, because not only do I benefit, but all my peers, my teammates, everyone gets to benefit. I think that the hardest thing for me in doing the 5 L's, when I first did it, I just wrote it down and looked at it, and I could pick actions for myself. The bit where I felt probably the most vulnerable was sharing some of my observations with my teammates, when I was like, hey, here's the thing that I don't like about myself as a leader. I was nervous that someone was going to turn around and go, oh, we'll use that against you in your performance review. No one did. Everyone was like, oh, cool. How can I help you? And then that sort of motivated them to do the same exercise. So it has, for me, created a great peer-to-peer learning network, to the point where I'd say in the 3 years that I've been doing the exercise, I've learned infinitely more from doing that than any business book anyone sends me. Because I get sent a load and I read the odd one, I'm like, it didn't really teach me anything. But when I hear from another leader what they did for real, what they learned, what they loathed, I learn infinitely more. So for me, it's very powerful because it's real, it's pragmatic, but I just have to go first and then share it with my peers. So I would strongly recommend it.
Excellent. And then one last question. What is the role emotional intelligence plays in building effective teams?
Huge role. I think it's massively understated. For us, we certainly being in a tech business, I think it's not easy to find tech talent, but it's easy to rate tech talent. It's like, as a coder, are you good or not? I can give you a tech test, and then you're like, cool. Are you an emotionally intelligent human? That's a lot harder to assess, right? You don't get a score. I can't plug a thermometer into you and get a score on that. And so we have to find a way of assessing it and then nurturing it. But if you think about highly effective teams, things like authenticity, vulnerability, I heard you talk about trust before, right? You build trust through emotional intelligence. And so my encouragement to people is it's not something you can read about and learn. It's something that you have to practice and do, and you have to take a bit of a leap of faith on. All I'll promise you is I've not yet heard of anyone who died by trying emotional intelligence. So it's quite a low risk strategy, but just share with people. Like I work with some amazingly technically intelligent people that maybe haven't naturally got that skill and they want to practice it. I'm like, let's practice it, but tell the team. Like, I'm trying something new this quarter. Here's what I'm trying. Can you help me? You'll be amazed how much more support you get. And so I just say be honest about it and be open. All right. And the more you share that, the more you get to build it, and we all benefit.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dom. I kind of thought when you said nobody dies from practicing emotional intelligence, you might get a rash, but you wouldn't die, right? But
yes. Yeah. You might get a rash or a twitch, but you're definitely not going to die from it.
You're never going to die. Excellent. I think that was it. I think that was the last of our questions. Thank you so much. That was really enjoyable.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Brilliant.